She walks quietly, but don't mistake her silence for surrender. Don't misread her calm for weakness. She's not loud because her battles are louder. She's not broken because her spirit is built on a rock. She is a woman of God fighting alone, but she is not defeated. You may not see her in the crowd, but heaven hears her cries in the midnight hour. Her warfare is not with flesh and blood. It's in the spirit, in the secret place, in the space where only God can see, and angels tread carefully. There are women right now under the sound of my voice challenge you to love enough and care enough, who are standing in the gaps that don't even say thank you, who are battling generational curses with nothing but a prayer and a promise, who are walking through fire with their heads held high, not because it's easy, but because quitting was never an option. If you're a woman of God fighting alone, you are not forgotten, you are not invisible, and you are not weak. You are the reason the enemy is nervous. You are the reason hell is trembling. You are not fighting to survive, you're fighting to establish legacy, preserve destiny, birth freedom for generations you'll never meet. She's surrounded by chaos, but her spirit is calm. That's not natural, that's supernatural. When everything is crumbling around her, she's still standing. She doesn't panic. She prays. She doesn't fall apart. She holds her ground. Peace is not her circumstance. Peace is her posture. While others post about what they're doing, she covers her house in silence. She prays over her children while they sleep. She lays hands on herself when no one else is there. She fasts when no one knows she's fasting. Power doesn't come from platforms. It comes from her prayer life. She doesn't clap back, she bows down. She doesn't engage in petty arguments. She wages war in the spirit. She understands that her real enemy is not her coworker, not her ex, not even her past. Enemy is spiritual wickedness, and she fights it with the armor of God. She's praying for others while battling her own demons. She's encouraging others while feeling depleted. She shows up for everyone else, even when no one shows up for her. She's bleeding behind the scenes, still choosing purpose over pain. When God doesn't answer, she still believes. When the door doesn't open, she still knocks. When the miracle hasn't come, she still waits. Her faith is not based on feelings, it's anchored in who she knows God is. She doesn't need a sign to trust. She trusts because He's never failed her before. True strength doesn't always shout. It doesn't always show up in big displays, grand announcements, or attention-seeking actions. True strength, God-given strength, often moves quietly. It exists in the still places, the hidden corners, the inner resolve that no one sees but heaven applauds. The kind of strength that can carry a home, a legacy, calling without needing a spotlight. That's the strength of a woman who walks with God. In a world obsessed with visibility, we've been trained to think that if it isn't seen, it doesn't matter. We've been taught to equate volume with value and applause with anointing. But there is a strength so rooted in God that it doesn't need validation from the crowd. It is silent, not because it is weak, but because it is sure. It knows its source. It knows its purpose. It knows who holds the outcome. You see, the strongest people are not always the ones standing on platforms. They're the ones who are still standing after the battle. They're the ones who fought their way through depression, disappointment, delay, alone, and never told a soul. They're the ones who smiled while silently holding back tears, who showed up when quitting would have made more sense, who trusted God when everything around them said not to. There's something sacred about strength that doesn't perform. It doesn't need to be recognized because it understands its reward is divine, not public. Spiritual strength is not about how much noise you can make. It's about how much weight you can carry without breaking. It's about your endurance when no one is watching. It's about your ability to stand still when everything around you is shaking. Consider the woman who wakes up before everyone else just to pray. She doesn't post about her devotion, but heaven records every word she utters in faith. She's not wearing a title, but she's operating in power. Her prayers are covering her family, protecting her children, and breaking generational strongholds. Her strength is in her posture, knees bent, heart surrendered, spirit alert. Or think about the woman who goes to work with grace while quietly battling anxiety. No one knows the war that rages in her mind, but she shows up anyway. She leads with dignity, speaks with wisdom, and serves with compassion. Her strength is not in her status. It's in her stability. She refuses to let what's going on inside her dictate how she shows up outside. This kind of strength doesn't seek revenge, it seeks God. It doesn't retaliate, it releases. It doesn't scream for attention, it walks in authority. It understands that just because you're not seen doesn't mean you're not strong. Just because people don't clap for you doesn't mean heaven isn't cheering. Sometimes your greatest victories are the ones nobody else knows about, except the God who helped you win them. When Jesus went to the cross, he didn't argue his innocence. He didn't defend his power. He didn't call down angels to fight. He was silent, not because he was powerless, because he was purposeful. Sometimes silence is the loudest sign of strength. It says, I don't need to fight this in the flesh. Trust the God who fights for me. A spiritually strong woman knows that the loudest voice is not always the most powerful one. She discerns when to speak and when to be silent. She isn't driven by ego or emotion. She's led by the Spirit. She understands that stillness is a strategy. Silence can be sacred. She doesn't waste her energy trying to prove herself. She knows her value because she knows her source. And what's more, she doesn't draw her strength from external affirmation. She draws from the well of intimacy with God. When others fall apart under pressure, she leans deeper into prayer. When the winds howl and the storms rage, she holds steady, not because she's unshaken, but because she's rooted. Her soul is anchored not in people, not in platforms, but in the promises of God. Let them showcase their strength on stages and in stories. Don't underestimate the power of a woman who fights in silence. Her warfare is private, but her victories are public. She knows that the Spirit of God within her is mightier than any weapon formed against her. She isn't loud, but she is lethal because her battles are spiritual and her weapons are divine. So don't be discouraged if you feel unseen in this season. Doubt your impact just because no one acknowledges your effort. Some of the most powerful moves of God happen in silence. Seeds grow in the dark. Diamonds are formed under pressure. And faith, real faith, is proven in the silence when you choose to trust, to stay, and to fight even when no one notices. Your silent strength is shifting atmospheres. Your quiet obedience is opening doors. Your whispered prayers are shaking the gates of hell. You may not see the results yet, but heaven is moving because you are. You don't have to make noise to be powerful. You just have to be rooted. Rooted in prayer, rooted in faith, rooted in purpose. Because when your strength comes from God, no storm can shake you, no devil can break you, no crowd can make or unmake you. The strength of a woman of God is not in how loud she roars, but in how steadfastly she stands. It is not in her popularity, in her perseverance. It is not in her presence on a stage, but in her presence at the altar. Let others chase the spotlight. Let others seek recognition. You, woman of God, stay grounded in the truth that your silence is not your weakness. It is your strategy. It is your consecration. It is your sanctuary. And it is your secret weapon. A woman of God does not fight like the world fights. She doesn't swing wildly at her enemies, nor does she waste her breath arguing with critics. Her fight isn't for control. It's for surrender. Her battle is not to be seen. It's to be faithful. She isn't trying to conquer people. She's contending for purpose. Her strength is not in the sword, but in the Spirit. Her weapons are not carnal. They are divine. She wages war in a posture of prayer, walks forward clothed in peace, keeps pressing on with the power of perseverance. When the world tells her to panic, she prays. When the enemy tries to provoke her, she stays calm. When life says give up, she endures. The woman of God knows the battle isn't around her. It's within her. She has learned how to fight her internal battles with supernatural tools. Woman of God doesn't wait for the fire to get out of control before she goes to God. She starts on her knees. Prayer is not her last resort. It's her first response. It's not a formality, it's her lifeline. She knows that when she opens her mouth in prayer, heaven pays attention and hell backs up. You may not hear her, but she is shaking foundations in the spirit realm. She prays when no one is watching. She whispers intercessions while washing dishes. She speaks the word over her children while they sleep. She lays her hands on her own head when nobody else is there to anoint her. She walks through her house declaring peace, breaking chains, and covering her territory with authority. Her prayers are not pretty. They are powerful. They are not rehearsed. They are real. They come from a place of surrender, sometimes through tears, sometimes in silence, sometimes through groaning that words can't express, but always with the trust that God hears. She's learned that prayer doesn't always change the circumstance immediately, but it always changes her. It fortifies her, centers her, corrects her, fuels her. It reminds her who she is and whose she is. It may not stop the storm, but it gives her the strength to stand in it. While others may respond to adversity with fear or rage, a woman of God walks in peace, not because she has no problems, because she knows the Prince of Peace. She understands that peace is not the absence of problems. It is the presence of God in the middle of them. It's a fruit of the Spirit, not a product of her circumstances. Her peace isn't passive, it's protective. Guards her heart and mind from being overwhelmed. It keeps her from reacting in the flesh. It stops her from making decisions rooted in panic. Her peace doesn't mean she doesn't feel pressure. It means she's made the decision to rest in God even while the pressure surrounds her. When others come against her, she doesn't retaliate, she rests. When people misunderstand her, she doesn't chase them down to explain. She trusts that God will vindicate her. When the enemy tries to bring confusion, she declares clarity. When storms rise, she doesn't ask why. She says, "Peace, be still." Not just to the storm around her, but to the storm within. She is unshaken not because she's perfect, but because she's anchored. Her peace is rooted in the knowledge that God is in control. She has made a choice to rest in the shadow of the Almighty. The chaos around her cannot compete with the calm within her. Her peace is her resistance. It's her declaration to the enemy that his tactics won't work. It's her silent testimony that God has the final say. In a world that thrives on drama and distraction, her peace is what sets her apart. It is her weapon, her shield, and her mark of maturity. The woman of God knows how to keep going. She's endured heartbreaks that would have broken others. She's survived storms she never thought she'd live through. She's been betrayed, misunderstood, overlooked, and underestimated. But she didn't stop. She kept showing up. She kept praying. She kept believing. Perseverance is not flashy. It's not glamorous. It's not praised by the world. But in the kingdom, perseverance is power. It's the ability to press forward when progress feels invisible. It's continuing to trust God even when you don't understand Him. It's standing firm even when it would be easier to run. She doesn't quit because she's tired. She rests and rises again. She doesn't give up because things didn't go her way. She goes back to God and asks for strategy. Her strength is not in her speed, but in her stability. She may take a moment to cry, but she never lets the tears take her out of the fight. She knows that purpose takes time. That faith is built in the waiting. Blessings are often born in the dry, difficult places. She knows that endurance is not weakness. It's worship. It's telling God, even if I don't see it yet, I'm not walking away. Even if it hurts, I still believe. Even if it's lonely, I still trust you. Her perseverance is generational. She's breaking curses that existed for decades. She's planting seeds of faith her grandchildren will harvest. She's enduring for the legacy she'll leave behind. She's fighting not just for her today, for her family's tomorrow. When others panic, she prays. When others rage, she rests. When others quit, she perseveres. Her strength is quiet, but it's undeniable. Her power is not in the world, it is in heaven. And while the world may not understand her ways, the kingdom rejoices every time she presses forward, trusts deeper, and holds on a little longer. This woman is not soft, she is surrendered. She is not fragile, she is faithful. She is not weak, she is war ready. And though she may walk through valleys alone, she never walks without purpose. There is a sacred strength that walks quietly among us, a strength not found in shouts, but in whispers, not in fame, but in faith. It is the strength of a woman of God, one who is constantly at war in the spirit while nurturing peace in her home, in her friendships, in the hearts of others. She is a warrior and a nurturer, a fighter and a comforter. She is consistently battling unseen forces while holding others up in love. You won't always recognize her by what she wears, but by what she carries. She carries burdens that aren't hers. She lifts others when no one is lifting her. She intercedes for people who have no idea she's standing in the gap for them. She's fighting battles in private that most couldn't even survive in public. Yet she loves. She gives, she supports, she nurtures. Not because it's easy, because it's her divine calling. Her war is spiritual. It is not visible to the naked eye, but it is deeply felt in her spirit. She fights with intercession, discernment, tears that water the roots of breakthrough, and silence that speaks louder than arguments. Every day she faces attacks not just on her body, but on her mind, her identity, her purpose. The enemy doesn't come after her lightly because he knows she is dangerous. When she is fully surrendered to God, she's not just fighting for herself. She's battling for her children's freedom, her family's healing, her community's restoration. She's wrestling in the spirit for people who have stopped praying. She's covering others with love, even as she wipes away her own tears. She's pouring encouragement into dry places while managing her own weariness. Her fight is never selfish, it's sacrificial. The world rarely sees the cost of that kind of obedience. She is aware of what she carries in the unseen realm. She discerns spiritual shifts others ignore. She senses warfare before it manifests. She walks into rooms and picks up on heaviness that others pretend isn't there. She feels the weight of words unspoken and the pain of hearts unhealed. And instead of judging, she chooses to cover them in love. It's not because she's perfect. Far from it. It's because she's been broken before, and now she recognizes brokenness in others. She has wrestled in her own dark nights. She knows what it means to feel forgotten, to feel invisible, to feel like no one understands. Pain birthed compassion. That fire forged faith, and that experience now fuels her desire to lift others, not condemn them. There's something about a woman who's been through the fire and came out worshiping. She has nothing to prove, but everything to protect. She doesn't waste energy on pride or platforms. She's focused on people and purpose. She's not here to impress. She's here to impact. This woman may not always speak boldly, but her prayers do. She may not always show her strength, but her endurance does. She may not always express how much she's carrying, but heaven knows, and God, in His mercy, continually equips her for the assignments placed in her hands. She is a bridge between heaven and earth. Her worship shifts atmospheres. Her obedience breaks chains. Her love restores broken spirits. She holds people up while secretly asking God to hold her together. She smiles through the struggle, not out of pretense, but out of trust. She believes God will strengthen her while she strengthens others. And here's the remarkable thing. She doesn't wait until she feels strong to show up for others. She loves from her place of lack. She gives from a place of sacrifice. She encourages even when her own soul is weary. Because she knows that love is not about convenience. It's about covenant. She doesn't need titles or applause. She's not driven by recognition. She knows who she is in God, and that identity allows her to serve without striving. Her worth is not in what others say, it's in what He has spoken. When people fall apart, she's the one holding them together. When families are crumbling, she's the glue. When hearts are breaking, she's speaking life. All the while, she is engaging in spiritual warfare on a level few understand. She knows the cost of her calling, but she wouldn't trade it for anything because she knows the eternal value of what she's carrying. She is the prayer warrior behind someone else's success. She is the intercessor behind someone else's healing. She is the voice crying out for mercy when others are drowning in sin. She's not loud, but she's powerful. She's not flashy, but she's favored. She walks in humility and carries divine authority. She is the Proverbs 31 woman in battle armor. She rises before dawn to prepare for the day and stays up in the night to cover her home. Her strength is not just in her hands, it's in her spirit. She's clothed with strength and dignity, and she laughs at the days to come, not because life is easy, but because her trust is anchored in God. She knows that love is not just a feeling, it's a force. It is the force that compels her to keep showing up, to forgive when it hurts, to serve when she's tired, to believe when the evidence says otherwise. Love is her weapon, her covering, her identity. And though she battles unseen forces, she is never unarmed. She is covered in the full armor of God, the belt of truth around her waist, the breastplate of righteousness guarding her heart, the gospel of peace on her feet, the shield of faith extinguishing every flaming arrow, the helmet of salvation renewing her mind, the sword of the Spirit, the word of God in her mouth. She is not just holding people up with love. She is doing it with divine power. She is a vessel, a warrior, and a witness to the faithfulness of God. And though her fight is invisible, her impact is undeniable. There is something powerful, something profound about a woman of God who chooses to keep believing. Even when her prayers seem unanswered, even when the heavens feel silent, even when everything she's waiting for feels like it's taken too long. While others give up, while others walk away, while others question and complain, she remains. Not because her journey has been easy, not because she's never doubted, but because somewhere along the line, she decided that her faith would not be conditional. She decided to trust God, even when the timeline doesn't make sense. Her faith isn't fragile, it's been forged. Forged in the fires of delay, strengthened in the silence of waiting, deepened in the seasons where God didn't say yes and didn't say no. He just said,
not yet.
Because her faith is not based on what God does. Her faith is based on who God is. She believes not because the door opened, because God is still good even when it stays shut. She keeps showing up in prayer, not because the situation has changed, because she's anchored in the one who never changes. This kind of faith isn't loud. It's not always dressed in confidence. Sometimes it's dressed in tears and trembling hands, but it keeps showing up. It keeps trusting. It keeps saying, even if you don't come when I expect you, still believe you will. You see, a woman like this has seen too much of God to doubt him now. Maybe she doesn't understand the delay. Maybe the why still haunts her in the midnight hour. But her faith answers her fears. It whispers God is working even here. She has learned enough and care enough. She has learned that delay. She has learned that just because something hasn't arrived doesn't mean it's not on the way. God's silence is not a sign of absence. It's often a setup for something greater. Faith is not a formula. It's not a feeling. It's a decision to trust God when the story doesn't make sense. It's waking up every morning with an H in your soul and still choosing to say, God, I trust you. It's going to church with an empty womb and worshiping like the promise is already inside you. It's watching doors close, opportunities pass, and people walk away, but never walking away from God. A woman of faith understands that timing is sacred. She doesn't rush the process because she knows God is doing something in her, not just for her. She understands that what he's building in her character is just as important as what he's preparing in her circumstances. And when the answers are delayed, she doesn't just wait passively. She waits in expectation. She waits in worship. She waits in wisdom, preparing for what she knows God can do. She doesn't sit idly. She positions herself with courage and grace. She's not pretending the waiting is easy. It's not. There are nights she cries herself to sleep. There are moments of frustration, confusion, even loneliness. But somehow her soul keeps saying, even now, believe. It's not because she has superhuman strength. It's because she has supernatural trust. Because even though she hasn't seen the answer, she's seen the faithfulness of God in the past. She remembers the doors he opened, the times he provided, the seasons he carried her when she couldn't walk. She remembers that God's delay is not punishment, it's preparation. He is not ignoring her. He's aligning things. He's not withholding from her. He's protecting her from settling for less. He's not absent. He's working behind the scenes, orchestrating timing, people, and circumstances for something better than she could imagine. This woman's faith doesn't disappear in the silence. It deepens. It becomes more raw, more real, more rooted. She doesn't need proof to believe anymore. She doesn't need signs to stay faithful. She knows her Redeemer lives. She knows his promises don't expire. She knows his word doesn't return void. There is a maturity in her now, a stillness, confidence that doesn't come from results, but from relationship. She knows that the one she is waiting on is worth it. And when others try to rush her, try to convince her to take shortcuts, try to tell her God forgot her, she doesn't waver because she knows what she's waiting for isn't just any outcome. It's God's best. And she refuses to settle for anything less. Even in delay, she walks in purpose. Even in waiting, she serves. She loves others. She encourages others. She becomes a testimony to those still learning how to trust. Her life speaks to those silently wondering, is it worth it to keep believing? Her life says, wait on the Lord, be of good courage, and he will strengthen your heart. And one day, when the answer comes, because it will, she won't have to prove anything to anyone. Her faith will speak for itself. People will say, she waited well. And she'll say, it was never about the answer. It was about the God who held me through it all. You see, delay doesn't destroy the woman of God. It develops her. It teaches her to walk by faith, not by sight. It trains her hands for war and her heart for worship. It doesn't steal her hope. It sharpens it. And in the process, her roots grow deeper. Her praise gets louder. Her testimony becomes richer. Because the God she waited on, he never fails. He never forgets. He never wastes the wait. So if you find yourself in a season of delay, take heart. Let your faith be your anchor. Don't let the silence deceive you. God is still speaking. Don't let the waiting weaken you. God is still working. Don't let the delay discourage you. God is still faithful. Not every battle makes the headlines. Not every victory is announced with applause. Not every act of strength is captured by the crowd. Some of the most powerful battles are fought in silence, behind closed doors, in the quiet of the night, with nothing but tears, whispered prayers, and the determination not to give up. There are women all over the world, women of God, who are fighting battles no one sees. They're carrying burdens no one understands. They're walking through valleys no one acknowledges. And they're doing it not for recognition, not for attention, but purely out of obedience to God. These women rise in the morning exhausted from a night of spiritual warfare and still choose to serve. They love people who don't love them back. They show up for responsibilities when their hearts are heavy. They pray for others while their own hearts are aching. They are faithful to God when their own lives feel dry and desolate, and the world may never clap for them. People may never know their name. Family may not recognize the weight they carry. Friends may not see the warfare they're enduring. But God sees, and God honors every hidden fight. Obedience is not always easy. It's not always celebrated. Sometimes it means walking away from relationships that once felt safe. Sometimes it means forgiving people who never apologized. Sometimes it means choosing purity in a culture that praises compromise. Obedience often requires sacrifice, and that sacrifice often happens in silence. God sees the woman who keeps worshiping even when she's weary. He sees the woman who stays on her knees until something breaks in the spirit. He sees the woman who holds her family together while privately battling her own discouragement. He sees the one who keeps giving, keeps loving, keeps believing, even when there's nothing left but faith. Obedience, in its truest form, is not performance, it is devotion. It's the quiet yes when no one else is watching. It's the surrender behind the scenes. It's choosing God's will even when it doesn't feel good. It's staying planted when everything in you wants to run. It's trusting Him when the plan doesn't make sense and the path doesn't look clear. In fact, it is often in those hidden places that God does His deepest work. The fight may be invisible to others, but it's intimate with God. It's where strength is refined. It's where character is built. It's where deeper revelation is birthed. And though it may feel like you're walking through the fire alone, you're never truly alone. God is in the fire with you. Think of Hannah, who prayed in silence for a child. Her pain wasn't public. People misjudged her. Even the priest thought she was drunk. But God heard her heart.